I want to talk about this issue of giving to God or giving to the church in order to improve your finances, because this is a big issue inside of Christianity as a whole. The debates rage. So, having lived that dynamic, like from one end of the spectrum to the other, and come out the other side, I can accurately speak to it. But first, I would like to say that, generally speaking, the large majority of the preachers that you see on TV and the internet who preach this type of thing are just manipulating you. They really are. They're just in it for the money. And this is biblical itself. In 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians, I think it's 2 Corinthians, Paul talks about those who are peddling the word of God. And it's the same today. People peddle the word of God. Peddling means selling it, right? Using it to make money. And Paul said there were many back then who were doing it. It's the same today. It's no different. People the world over are looking for, not the world over, but so many people in the world are just looking for a way to make money. And if they see religion or God or the Bible as a way to do it, then they'll do it. But there are some truths about it in the Bible. Jesus said, "Given it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken over, will men give to you." It's talked about a lot in Proverbs. One of my favorite ones is Proverbs 11. It says, "There is one who scatters abroad, yet increases all the more, and there is one who withholds what is justly due, but it results only in want." Right? And there's, of course, Malachi, where God talks about the tithe to the Israelites in the Old Testament. And there's tons more. So, but we all know that stuff. We've heard it 1,000 times. So I'm going to tell you my experience, because experience is worth a lot. Here's my experience. I bought into the whole thing hook, line, and sinker as a young Christian at age 19, jumping in with all of my heart and mind and soul and body and efforts and everything I had. And aside from all the other aspects of that, I'm just going to speak to this financial one tonight. I gave tons. I constantly gave to people on the street. Anybody who asked for money, I constantly gave for decades. I tithed regularly to many different churches, building funds. Constantly, I sponsored kids, just endlessly gave and gave and gave and gave and gave. And one of the main tenets that I was always told was that if you do that, then that opens up God's blessings on your life, and God will in turn bless you. And I believed that for 1 or 2 decades at least. Okay, but that has not happened in my life, and here's why. So a transition happened in my life. So it's linked to a lot of other things, right? I'm not saying that those principles can't work in somebody's life. It depends. And here's what it depends on. It depends on you and your relationship with God. That's what it always comes down to. When you're trying to sift through all of this stuff, it always, always, always comes down to that. Because God, being the perfect parent, looks at each individual and goes and sees a zillion factors that we don't see. And he's like, okay, I have to deal with every single one of those in the most perfect, loving way I can. And I'm going to. And that changes with each one of us. Okay? So there are general truths and general principles, but God, when he manages our lives and governs our lives with the law of love, implements those general principles in different ways, and he overrides those general principles when necessary, not all the time, but when necessary, when love, the highest law, dictates that he do so. Okay? So sometimes those general principles will work, but other times they won't, for a myriad number of reasons that God understands about our hearts and our minds and our wills and our emotions and our experiences and our paradigms and our relationships and how we view him and how we're able to receive his love or not, and how much we trust him or not, and our past experiences with authority figures, and our past experiences with money, and our paradigms with money, and our paradigms with churches, and our paradigms with authority figures in general, and our paradigms with just so many things in life, like what arena we've been in life, and how it handled money, and just an infinite number of factors that affect our heart and mind. And what's God's main goal in all that? His main goal in all that is like, I have to work with every little detail to get you to me. Bingo, that's God's number one goal right there. Okay? So when a lower priority thing such as finances, doesn't have to be finances, it could be a ton of lower priority things, affect that main goal, God will subject that lower priority thing to that main goal. If that means that you get money, then you'll get money. If that means that you won't get money, then you won't get money. If that means that you stay where you're at, then you'll stay where you're at. Why? Because God's ultimate goal is love with himself. And he's like, okay, I understand money. It's a temporary reality of this world, and it is subject to the higher law of love. Just like a ton of other lower things in life are subject to the law of love, because his main goal is to always get you in love with himself. Okay? So money, being one of those lower priorities in life, runs on lower principles than love, gets subject. Okay? So God's not against money. He wants you to be taken care of because he's the perfect parent. Okay? That's true. So when preachers tell you that it's true, yes, God is the perfect parent, and any parent is going to provide for their children. Okay? And I have had God do that. But I have not experienced the vast riches and blessing that I was often told that I would get by giving to all that. So here's what happened to me. God, being the perfect parent, looked at my life, and he began to teach me when I started to actually live in relationship with him and just move away from just listening to a bunch of men talking and doing what they said, because there's a huge difference between those two things, living in relationship with your Father or just listening to a bunch of men talk and do what they do. There's a vast difference. Once I made that transition, God started to teach me. He's like, Jesse, you are very irresponsible. He said, look at yourself. You can't even take care of yourself or your family financially, and yet you're giving to all these other people. And I've had him stop me specifically in 2 different times. Now, I'll tell you in a minute, I'll give you both those examples, and say, you need to stop doing this because you're being irresponsible. And you need to stop doing this until you can take care of yourself. Okay? And I'm in the middle of that process now at age 53. Because so much of my life I just listened to what men said and tried to do what they say. And I didn't live in this real relationship with him, in which he actually deals with the real issues of your life. That's step 1. If you want to get this thing, forget what everybody else is saying and go to him in person and say, Father, what do I need to do? Then you'll get somewhere with money, as with everything else in life. Okay? You want to fix anything in your life? That's what you do. You don't listen to all the preachers. I mean, you can, right? I still listen some, right? But 100% of the time I'm listening to him. And sometimes I'll listen to them, but it's always subject to the relationship. That's the master key. Okay? So, he started to teach me. He's like, Jesse, you can't even take care of yourself or your family. So, Quit. I'll give you an example. So for 3 decades, I gave to the people on the street, and they're human beings. They're not homeless people. They're human beings in need. And Jesus said, give to those who ask of you. So I took that approach for 3 decades. Every time, unless there was danger involved, a person would ask for something on the street with a sign or literally asking or by the side of the road. Every time I would give to them. I'd stop, I'd turn around, go give, okay, for 3 decades. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of bringing people home, letting them use the phone, feeding them, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Letting them stay when they needed a place to stay, when it's cold outside. Tons of that stuff, okay? One time, driving out of Walmart, there was a guy, and I got mad. I said, Lord, I can't do this. I can't take care of everybody. And he stopped me and he goes, Jesse, I'm not going to hold you responsible for that guy, but I am going to hold you responsible for particular family members. That was an eye-opener. From that point, I quit giving to those people until I could take care of my own family. That's the difference between having a real relationship with your Father who knows what you need, who knows what's going on in your heart and your mind and your will, emotions, and the real issues, and having him tell you and instruct you as to what to do, instead of just listening to some dude over there telling you, oh, give to the church and God will bless you. See the difference? This one's real. This one's not. There's a little bit of truth in that. But let me tell you, it's easy to read the Bible and repeat it back to people. Preachers who read the Bible and repeat it back to me anymore, it's like, thanks, but I can read it myself. I need this relationship with my Father. That's what I need. Because he knows, he looks inside of me and he sees all the reality, boom, from the time I was conceived till now, every factor in it, and he governs it with his love and says, do this, Jesse, because of all of that. Okay? I told you I'd give you 2 examples. Here's another one. Trying to do this without mentioning people's names on here. So I took care of my stepmom for years and years and years after my biological dad passed away. I took care of her dogs. I buried her dogs when they died. I took her to the doctors, many doctors, tons of doctors. Drove her to the store so many more times than I can possibly remember. Drove her all over, just let her live with me, right? Just went out to get her resources, searched the community, searched the internet to find resources for her, taught her how to use Facebook to communicate with long-lost family. The whole thing, just, stood up for her when she reported abuse for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. Finally, again, God convicted me. He started to say, Jesse, this lady has 3 children, several grandchildren, many grandchildren, and even many more great-grandchildren. And none of them are doing anything to take care of her. And he showed me in the Bible where, in Timothy, where Paul says, let children make some return to their parents when they get old. So he basically said, it's their responsibility, not yours. You need to quit. Okay? Now, I was used to taking care of this lady, and she was in need. It was hard for me to quit. It was hard. But I did. And a year and a half, or maybe 2 years max, after that had happened, she had completely taken the steps necessary on her own with one of her daughter's help and moved back to where her family whole lived, which she had been trying to do for the past 40 years and was unable to do in less than 2 years. Got what she wanted that whole time as soon as I quit enabling her. Okay? Now, if I'd have been in church, they'd have said, oh, Jesse, you have to keep taking care of her. You have to give to her. Take care of the orphans and widows. Come on, don't abandon her. Right? But because I was listening to God in this new relationship that I found with him, he's like, stop. You're being irresponsible again. They're responsible for her. You're not. And if they don't take care of you, take care of her, I will hold them responsible, not you. So I quit taking care of her. One of them stepped in, got her where she needed to go. This is the difference, folks, between living with God and just listening to a bunch of preachers. If in your Christianity you've taken the approach, like I did, I'm not speaking down to you because I made this mistake for decades. If you take the approach of just listening to men or women, teachers and preachers talk to you and teach you and preach you the Word of God and go to church and listen and do what they say, you're in trouble. Because it's incomplete. You'll get about 4% of what you really need. And you might hit some truths in there. You might experience some successes which will cause you to think you're on the right path, which can be very deceiving. I had that happen too. If you want the other 96%, come into a relationship with your Father, and it'll all work out. Thanks, and have a great day.